Hello everybody, welcome back to this week's blog.
How you doing? I'm Dr. Dave, this is Dr. Abby, and we're going to read this week's blog entitled, Now What's Wrong? Probably Nothing.
All right,
That.
so we'll get started. Hello and welcome back. I'm trying to use a new format for these blogs and keep them to a point or two since they tend to be heavy. And too many heavy things gets very, very heavy.
Yeah,
This
so
is true.
I'm trying to keep these blogs to one or 2 points instead of lots and lots of stuff, and so that gives us time for talking back and forth.
All right. How is it that so many people love to tell us what's wrong without really knowing what's right? Or if they do, what's right for each of us?
Great point. How can I tell Abby what's wrong with her when I don't have any idea what's right? I mean, think about that for a second. No idea what's right, but I know what's wrong. Maybe not.
The mechanic tells a person what's wrong with his car, the doctor or dentist what's wrong with his body, and the ubiquity of social media, what's wrong with this entire life.
With everything.
Yeah. If a person is still listening to the news, reading the paper, or following social media, all he hears about is what's wrong with everything.
With everything. Nothing is good. It's always bad news. Something is always wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But you'll never, ever hear about what's right or what is working. And it's not like, well, we need good news. Now, we don't need good news necessarily, but there are things that are working right. There are good things going on.
Yeah. One might have a tendency to believe these naysayers, but how can they know what's wrong without ever knowing what is right, or even acknowledging that anything could possibly be right?
That's another part. They don't even say that there's a possibility that anything could be right. It's just wrong. We go from one disaster to the next disaster to the next disaster to the next disaster, and that's it. And the only reason this disaster, 5 disasters before, is because the new disaster is worse than the one.
Well, and then something very interesting too, there's a specific part of your brain that if it's fed a particular type of information, it's going to learn that information and be on the lookout and only see that perceived information from then on out. So if you're constantly ingesting negative things, death, disaster, all of that type of stuff, your brain's actually going to start to hardwire to only see those things.
That's all you see.
So if you hardwire it to see positivity, life, goodness, beauty,
Which is out there.
Your life actually does start to look that way. So just a little food for thought.
Yeah.
Interesting though, if one listens to...
Interesting thought.
Oh, interesting thought, sorry. If one listens only to those who always tell him what's wrong. To truly know something, one would have to be able to compare it to something that he knows, or in this case, perhaps the opposite.
Yeah, you get that. To really know something, you'd have to be able to compare it to something that you know, or at least look at the opposite. So to know that something's really bad, you would have to know what really good was.
There is always the other side.
Yeah.
While rain might spoil a picnic, one knows that all survive because of rain.
Yeah.
So what's the story? Is rain good or bad, right or wrong? One can be crushed by a picnic spoiled by rain, or accept its benefits as part of the normal course and set his sails to picnic on a different day.
New day.
But but whose story are you going to listen to? Should this determine the rightness or the wrongness of all? Someone else's story?
Think about that. So somebody else has some story about something, this being bad, it's bad over there, bad over there. So that determines that everything's bad. What about your story? And that's what we're going to ask here.
Mm-hmm. And what about your story? Disregarded as if it doesn't matter?
Isn't that interesting? Disregarded as if it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you think because it's all bad. It's all horrible. It's all miserable. It's rah, rah, rah. And it's like, well, I actually enjoy it. We'll take care of that. Yeah.
All right. It's the only story that
the
does
younger
matter,
generation
actually.
sitting here laughing at the old man, but there's people out there that know exactly what I'm talking about. It wasn't that long ago that I was part of the younger generation, and here I sit at any rate.
No, I believe it. I'm with you. Okay, and I'll state that again. And what about your story? Disregard it as if it doesn't matter. It's the only story that does matter, actually.
Actually, it's the only story.
And by an individual's ability to decide, one can say what's right and what is wrong, and know without a doubt, most will actually think he is wrong.
Yeah, isn't that great? So no matter what you think, you're wrong. Plan on it.
But everybody has that person where, you know, you go in and you tell them, oh, I had this great experience. Oh, well, didn't you hear about the one time someone tried to do that and then it didn't work out so favorably? And it's like, yeah, but I had a good time. I don't know.
Well, let me ask you then, what am I supposed to do?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I don't know. You have no idea. I'm just telling you it's all bad over there.
Right.
Yeah.
That's very funny, but true. So, who cares? What works for you and keeps you on the path of your journey is all that matters. How can one look at an X-ray film or read something from a textbook and know what is wrong with you? You are not an X-ray film or a textbook, and their opinion is theirs, not yours.
Yours. That's the big problem when you go for healthcare and stuff like that. They fire off all these tests and they want to tell you what's wrong with you, but they have no idea what's right with you. And they're comparing yours to some textbook or an X-ray of something or something or something or something, but they're not comparing it to you. And then all of a sudden, this person knows what's wrong with you, and this now becomes the path of your life. Bad idea.
And what of the experts? How can they be? How can they be thought to have gained expertise through study when a real education is an unlearning process? Ignorance being peeled away, allowing wisdom to shine.
That's something to keep in mind. That's what a real education is. So I'm an expert and I know all this stuff, but a real education is unlearning. Mm-hmm. And then wisdom comes through. But you're not accumulating knowledge because you can make up your own knowledge. Mm-hmm. You're peeling away the crap, and then this thing that knows and really is you emerges. And that's an incredible thing, and that's what we need more of on this planet. Not expert.
Yeah. Scientific opinion is the best guess at the given time. Scientific opinion is the best guess at the time given the data.
Yeah.
Diagnoses, again, the best guess at the time given the data.
Keep that in mind. Given the data, given the information that's available, a diagnosis, a scientific recommendation, or anything else like that is the best guess at the time. And that's all it is. Mm-hmm. And like we talked about in the previous thing, does it align with your story? Does the story work?
In the end, the truth is the best story that helps a person to survive, and an even better story helps many others survive.
There you go.
Years ago, again, this is my dad writing this, so he says, years ago, my son Austin told me that he did not want to go to school anymore because he already knew it already. Truth be known, he probably did, much like each of us knows already, and an education merely exercises stupidity from our eyes.
Yeah, we do know. Why do you go through, when you're sitting here going to school, your opinion is that you don't know. Of course you know. You absolutely know. You can't go into this not saying that I don't know. You do know. Okay. And it's like, well, what do you mean no? Well, it's knowing everything without knowing one thing, It's weird, but...
What was that Mark Twain quote you always used to say?
Which one?
Don't let your...
Oh, don't let your schooling get in the way of your education.
Yeah. We heard that
Mark
one
Twain.
a lot.
Yeah. Don't let your schooling get in the way of your education. Mark Twain.
All right. I told him he would need to produce something with which to exchange for the things he needed to live, and that if he could get me a business plan and if it made sense, he no longer needed to go to school. He stomped off. I pulled him back and told him he will be confronted with this problem for the rest of his life, and if not today, someday he would have to tackle this problem. I needed a story that made sense, that's all. It's all that any of us need, not to be told we are wrong and all the horrible stuff that is happening and will happen. A person cannot use this nonsense, can he?
Yeah, and that was the whole thing, like with Austin. He says, I'm not going to go to school anymore because I already know it all. I said, yeah, you probably do. I need a business plan. All you need to do is show me how you're going to produce something. You still have to be productive. And that how you're going to exchange this for food and a place to live and stuff like that. I didn't care what it was. If he drew up some sort of a plan like he was going to build robots in the garage or something like that, he could have been done with school if it made sense. I just needed a story that made some sense to me. It didn't need to be right or wrong, just some sort of a story that he had thought about this, and he was on some sort of a path, keeping in mind he would have to produce something to exchange with others in order to survive.
Yeah. Sadly, many have been programmed to be anti-human, anti-prosperity, and anti-happiness. Tell your story and be willing to change it when necessary to take the next steps on your journey. And if the story is really that cool, maybe I'll go with you.
Yeah, and it really is. When you look at the news and all the media and stuff, and that's it. We're essentially being programmed to be anti-human, anti-prosperity, anti-happiness, anti, because it's all so bad over there. It's just bad. You know, it's dangerous, it's horrible, they're coming to get you, you're overwhelmed, and this and that. And here's some tests, and let me show you how bad you are. Let me show you how bad this is. And we're going to do this study and that study, and here's what's wrong with you. And this is a wrongness that's been wronger than any wronger than this that's ever been wronged anywhere. And you have it. And some people love that story. Oh, my doctor said I'm the wrongest of the wrong. And it's like, wow, good for you. How can you use that to survive? More importantly, how can you use that to help others survive? Other than they'll look at you and say, yeah, that person's a wacko. We should go this way. Anybody that's relishing or reveling in this idea that they're the wrongest of the wrong.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting too, because, you know, when we see people who come in all sorts of conditions, and I try not to make it, or to, you know, spell out the picture of this is your body, you know, doing something wrong. Your body is actively trying to survive every single second, and you get in the way quite often. But it's always trying to come up with solutions. Believe it or not, your pain, your dysfunction, all of these things are solutions.
Your weight,
and
everything.
It's not a wrongness. Your body is truly trying to overcome and adapt and survive. And sometimes it just doesn't have the appropriate tools to do that. But it's not a wrongness.
Right, and could it do a better job? We all could.
Yeah.
You know, there's no absolute perfect or anything. Could you help your body in its effort to help you and trying to survive? Could you do something that would help it do it a little more in line with what would be maybe a better survival potential? That's all. Yeah. But what you see in the mirror, this is a solution. This isn't a problem. This isn't a wrongness, which is kind of a weird thought. You go back and you'll look at it, and that comes from lifestyle, which we've talked about forever and ever. But yeah, what you see in the mirror is a solution to your lifestyle. That's the answer. Given that you do X, Y, and Z, makes total sense.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that, take care.
Yeah. Thank you very much, and hopefully you like that. And just click on, hey, I like that. Hey, Dr. Abby is really a nice person. Comments, anything along those lines. She needs to work on her reading a little bit more. It's that modern.
Your syntax is crazy. The way that you form sentences.
Modern education. So.
Yeah, there you go. Product of that. All right, cool. Take care, everyone.
Yeah, thank you for watching.